July, which was a month. Not much happened in July, I'll be honest.
Okay.
Looking back at it, wasn't that big of a thing. But there were a couple of things that were big, at least a couple of stories that were actual proper news. And then there's a lot of fun. But I'm more of a fun guy, as I'm sure people are aware. We'll start off with the big news. This was the big news at the time, which is that the French warned that they were going to turn into a civil war.
Yeah.
And this was a bunch of French generals writing a letter, just being like, hey, remember how we wrote to you before? And so there was going to be a civil war? Yeah, it's time. Things are going bad. And this was because, as you can see here, well, that prophecy ended up coming true because a teenager was shot dead by the police because they told him to stop the car. He went, no, Lamel, and drove the car at them, so they shot him. And of course, this was a crime against diversity and the global BAME race. So there were massive uprising in France against the French government and the French people because criminal?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the way it goes.
It's really weird where everyone has to read all sorts of narratives within specific events.
Yeah. Like criminal.
They have to make it a class thing or a class conflict thing. Weird.
Or in this case, a race thing.
Yeah.
It was about, don't you know the French police hate brown people? Why? Because they shot a criminal who was endangering them. Yeah, not the best argument.
It's a
very
few.
silly.
There are a few life lessons that you need to learn. You know, like don't jab a knife into a toaster that's on.
Yep.
You know, don't drop a toaster that's plugged into a bath that you're sitting in. Things like that. You know, don't look down the barrel of a loaded gun, see if it's plugged with mud or something like that. Do what armed police tell you to do is one of them.
Or don't run over
whatever they're saying
car.
to do, you do it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stella.
Don't use your car to run people over.
Yep, it's another good one. It's another good one.
But you're entirely right. Just deal with the police, sue them after if they've done something wrong. But unless you're a partisan fighting the Germans, like just what are you doing?
Yeah, not even armed police, all police.
Yeah.
When you're in the line of sight or you're in their presence, just do whatever they're telling you to do, even if it's unfair.
But even if it's illegal, because then you can sue them after and get cash.
You kind of got to, because it's not in your interest to not do that. If there's armed police there and they're aiming guns at you and they're telling you to do anything, just do it.
Yeah. This wasn't an instance like we've seen in America where there's like a drunk guy who was given 5 different orders from an armed police officer who then shot him. Like, they didn't make any sense. That's murder. No, this was a guy who was told to stop the car. He went no and then died. So there we are. That's a nice start to the month, which is France doing French things. But the big story of that month for me, and I think for everyone, was this: diversity cries. Because the United States Supreme Court finally got the court case of, I think, the decade, where they had to decide whether or not diversity hires were unconstitutional.
Okay.
And of course they went, no, that's unconstitutional. That's retarded. You can't hire people just because I want the blackest woman. And the best part of this was the fact that, of course, the blackest, womanist woman you'd ever seen had just been picked to be on the Supreme Court by Joe Biden to be a black woman. So, of course, she voted no. She said it was fine and didn't even turn up for the conversation.
Mm.
So, Justice Thomas wrote 1 paragraph about how clearly this was unconstitutional and then wrote 5 pages just shitting on her. Just be like, she's an awful person.
Yes.
She doesn't understand anything. And it was like, that was good. That was a good time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court in America is so unbelievably pivotal. It's weird. Like when you look into the nature of the American state and how it works, really, lots of it pinges on whether the Supreme Court works properly.
Which kind of doesn't.
Sorry?
It kind of doesn't, though, because I mean, it does function on it, but I mean, the Supreme Court doesn't really work properly, because the way it works is just whichever majority of ideological people are there, that suddenly becomes what the Constitution said, trust me, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
Until there's a new group of ideological people running it.
Yeah. Like the Supreme Court in the 19th century said slavery is okay and child labour is okay. And then later, decades later, said, actually, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. And so whatever they say really goes. They can basically interpret the Constitution. So it's so important. So to try and pack it with partisans or
the blackest
or race baiters or something, it's the most insidious thing the Democrats have done, in my opinion. There's a great historian, Alistair Cook, English historian, who talks all about that. Look him up on the Supreme Court. It's fascinating stuff. I'm sure there's a YouTube video of it.
What I find a bit amazing is that Democrats, the woke Democrats. They're trying to say sometimes that they are constitutional, but if they're clearly not, and some judges are saying that you're unconstitutional, then they blame the Constitution as bigoted. So it's a document created by bigotry. So it's really weird why on the one hand they want to have the conversation. It shows that for them it's just all a facade. They want to appear as if they are, let's say, friendly towards some people, let's say, who are undecided, the swing voters who may have really warm sentiments towards the Constitution, but it doesn't seem to me to show their actual sentiments with respect to it.
But the end result is that now it is unconstitutional in the United States. So the universities in question had to stop accepting black applicants who shouldn't have been there and rejecting Asian applicants who should have been there. Because really white people weren't really part of the conversation.
Yeah, it really screws over high-achieving Asians is who it really screws over, right?
That was the de facto actual conversation going on. So there we are. I will be interesting to see if academic agents' theory is correct, that, of course, culture is downstream from law. Because this is a pretty good example of the law just explicitly saying, no, you can't just hire people for being black or woman because you like black or woman. That's stupid. That's not constitutional. To all the institutions of the United States, to see if the American culture actually reins back in some of this, as he puts it, put the woke away. But
that sounds a bit reductionist in this case, because you have many cases where people are putting forward some laws and the people don't want it, and they rebel, or they have engaged in actions of civil disobedience. So just
for sure, I'm not here to rewrite.
There is an effect. There is a likelihood that if something is a law, a lot of people do treat it as sacrosanct. I don't think it's a fail-safe thing.
So I won't reiterate all of academic agents' argument because we yeah. too long. But the fundamental part is essentially not the politicians, but the legal system.
Yes, but isn't there a distinction between law and law enforcement? Because I think most of the problem is with enforcing existent law.
Maybe, but I don't want to get into all of that. But that was the big story. I think that probably was the biggest story of the month. After that, I was going through all the segments we did. And really, the big interesting things for me were just kind of the fluff bollocks that happened throughout that month that were weirdly consequential in a strange way. So we'll start off with this one, I suppose, which is the absolute death of iDubbbz as a figure. Just he's now completely gone. And that was the month where it finally ended, I think, for anyone who thought that he might come back one day and stop being retarded and start being, I don't know, interesting again, if nothing else. You may remember he basically went on an apology tour where he was like, I'm so sorry for saying jokes. I'll never do it again. Please forgive me. And the reason any of this happened is because he met a transgender fan who said the phrase, oh, I'm just going to assume you don't like trans people, but that's okay with me, to take a selfie with him. And he took that, instead of correcting them, because obviously he doesn't have a problem with that, he decided that his whole career was evil and to throw it into the dumps. And it seemed to have been mostly catalytic made from the fact that he has a girlfriend who's just bullying him, which was just an end of an era, really. It was just the end of fun YouTubers, like the old breed, who just like to be edgy and have fun. He was really the last one who was big and is now, well, gone. There we are. End of an era for YouTube, at least.
Hi, folks. Sorry to interrupt the video, but I just wanted to announce that we have a new line of merch in our merch store. The merch store was kind of empty for a while, and so I thought, right, okay, what do I actually want on shirts? And so I just went through some of the most epic and true things that I think that historical people have said, and John managed to make an amazing set of merch out of it. And we will have extra things coming in the store, such as posters for these to go on. Thanks for everything, folks. Now back to the video.
Some other stories that were good fun. So there's this one, which turned out that a lot of black feminists love white cock, which is a rather crude way of putting it, but it turned out to be true. Like, we literally went through the most prominent feminist black Americans, and every single one of them has a white husband, we discovered. It was like, all these people that spend all their time whining about whiteness and white supremacy and how white men feel so entitled, all of them have white husbands.
Okay.
I know AOC's got a white husband, isn't she?
She is one of them, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Look at Harry there.
The old times.
Yeah.
I mean, Harry does sort of change with the seasons. He comes and goes. It was a good feature.
Yeah.
Anyway. It's not the only thing. There was good, well, I suppose research.
He looks like a musketeer. One of the three musketeers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should get him a sword. Christmas. But the next big story, I think, of the time was that we found out that you literally can't buy a house. It's impossible. Give up. Just don't bother. And this was because a local lady came to our attention where she had 50 grand. Was trying to buy a house in Cardiff. And even with that large deposit, she couldn't actually find finance. It was literally impossible with her circumstances. I was like, oh, that's pretty tough. So then we thought, okay, is that really true? And we did manage to find her a place in the end, which is this one on screen, which, yeah, I don't know if she ever took up the offer, but there we are. We did the investigation. There is a place where you can buy it, and it's that, which is a pretty awful area, but too bad. Point being, the housing crisis in the UK, I think, finally reached peak retardation.
Sorry, that's covered with condensation.
Yes. Look, she's worked hard. She deserves it. That's all I'm getting. But anyway, so there we are. I mean, things did get worse later in the year, but I'm not here for those months. It's just for that one where everyone realized financing was absolutely crazy. And then the last thing that happened in that month of everyone thought was going to be at least a big consequence, or at least the boomers did, but turned out to be a complete nothing burger fad, is this NPC TikTok.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yes, I remember.
I was sat there with Dan, and I love Dan, but my God, like him and Carl were just like, oh boy, this is going to change everything. This is a massive shift in Zoomer culture, and there's going to be loads of these. And then it instantly died.
What was it? This must have passed me by.
The NPC fad, you didn't see?
I don't know. What was it?
I don't know if I can play some for you, and you can enjoy the festivities, which is...
I think that this is appropriate for the occasion.
Yeah, let's play.
Kitty paws. Pumpkin, yum!
That's spicy.
Is that AI or is that a real person?
That's a real person.
Okay.
Pretending to be AI. Come on.
Okay, that's what I'm looking at. Okay, got it.
What were they saying? Can you remind me of what they were saying about how this is going to change everything?
And is it just that endlessly?
Yeah.
Okay, I
It's just
vaguely recall this. Oh yeah, no. Did it degenerate quite quickly into like not attractive people doing it?
Yes.
Or like men doing it?
And then men tried.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I recall
Just,
now.
No, don't do that. There are some funny, like, I suppose, remnants of this stupid fad, which is that I've seen a few guys who are role-playing as that, but it's a pre-recorded video, and they're pretending to be, like, medieval streamers, and they're just like, Galwick of Canterbury, thank you for the 25 subs. It's just like, man, it's the French. I know, it's always the French, isn't it?
Callum,
I
think
do
it's...
remember now. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I do remember it now, but it came and went so fast. What Carl and Dan thought it would be.
Yeah, I just remember. I mean,
going forward,
people didn't get to see the conversations that are in the office as well, but on stream, of course, Dan was just like, "Man, this is a big shift." And then Carl, for like 2 days, was massively obsessing about, "Oh, man, this is a big thing." And I remember the third day when we did a podcast together on it, he was just being, "Yeah, this is going nowhere." It was just like,
please keep it this way, because I want to say that if you look at your faces, Dan seems there like he thinks he's about to find a gold mine in the distance, and you're looking there. It's not gold, mate.
Yeah.
it was just yet another whore. Literally, she's a porn star, begging for money on the internet, which was a stupid fad and came and went. But it wasn't the only thing that was a stupid fad that came and went. I'll end this off, which is, I suppose, the other fluff piece of that month, which became a big thing, which is everyone and their mum had a theory about Barbie, of course. Which I think has finally died out. I don't think anyone.
I haven't watched it. I just didn't understand why people were so psyched about it.
Yeah, because there was a before it was actually released, there was some theories that would be hyper feminist because a bunch of the behind the scenes stuff was weirdly feminist. Although they did end up kicking out that fat comedian that nobody likes, the female one, fat female comedian.
Joe Brad?
No, she's American. Amy Schumer.
Oh,
There we are. She was going to play Barbie, and then everyone went,
Come on. No.
And so
a Netflix Barbie, maybe.
so then
I think she plays everything on Netflix.
I happen to know the actual Barbie fandom, the people who like the old Barbie movies from when they were little girls and then still make edits about it. That's a whole thing on YouTube. They were all kind of hyped for the movie to just be good. And then the movie ended up not being even slightly discussed by the Barbie fandom.
Do they have? Were they plastic doll aficionados?
No. There's like a real community of people who just love Barbie movies, like the
Okay.
old animated ones from the 2000s. Weird subcultures, right? But they're all like now 20-something women, who grew up with those movies, and they were all really hyped, and they have their own YouTube channels, like 1 million subscribers, all making edits of these old movies. So I was like, okay, this might be funny, I guess. And then those people saw the movie and immediately left. And the only people left talking about the movie were, of course, political people who all had their own theories about the Barbie movie.
Because those people, that community, that sounds all right to me. That's okay. If you was a little girl,
Little girls who like Barbie.
right?
yes.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll allow it. Right? There's nothing weird and perverted and subversive about that. Right?
Yeah, of course.
But from what I gather, I haven't seen the Barbie movie and I've got no intention of watching it.
Yeah.
But from what I gather, it's not what it was about, right? That fandom. It wasn't trying to.
I just wasn't even part of the series.
Right.
I mean, like, the whole point of the old Barbie movies is Barbie getting with Ken. And then this new one, Ken didn't end up with Barbie. So
It's like My Little Pony or something. If you was a little kid, little girl, you liked My Little Pony and you've now just grown up into your 20s and you still like My Little Pony, that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's when it's middle-aged men that insist they love the culture and subcultures to do with My Little Pony. That's when it's not okay anymore, right?
to be fair, I don't think it was so much people who are bronies, but just everyone political was like, bro, I've got a theory about Barbie. I think Colin didn't end up releasing his grand theory about Barbie, and I still haven't watched it because I watched the movie, I just went, that was a waste of time.
Well, this story goes on into August because I'm going to talk about it in a minute.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, I'll leave my take till then.
But there we are, a fairly uneventful July, except a lot of goodwill from diversity hires getting the boot, and then a lot of just end of an era funny stuff, really. Hope you enjoyed. If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com and check out the merch store, in which you can find things such as the They Are Lying mugs. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.